Have you ever felt like you're drowning in information? Like when you're trying to understand something really complicated and it just feels impossible to wrap your head around it.
Yeah, absolutely. That feeling of hitting a wall when you're trying to learn something new can be so frustrating.
Well, today we are talking about a new approach to learning that might just be the life raft we all need. EON Reality has just launched something called Comprehensive Mission Dialogues for their EON Exploratory Simulator.
And these dialogues are designed to take those dense, complex subjects and turn them into something that you can really get your hands on and understand.
So for anyone who might not be familiar with the Exploratory Simulator, it's an AI-assisted VR and AR platform designed to make learning and knowledge transfer more effective in all sorts of settings, from classrooms to industry training.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, have been really excited about the potential for VR and AR in education. And with these new mission dialogues, it feels like that potential is actually starting to be realized.
Exactly. So instead of just passively reading about a concept or watching a video, these dialogues put you right in the middle of the action. You're actively working through a problem, and to do that, you have to understand and apply the knowledge you're learning.
So today we're going to dive into these mission dialogues and really break down how they work and what makes them so effective.
Okay, so let's start by getting a sense of the scope of these missions. What are some of the subjects that they cover?
Well, the range is actually pretty incredible. You've got everything from space science and biology to chemistry, engineering, and even forensic science.
Wow. Okay, so let's jump into one of these missions. The Voyager's Legacy mission sounds particularly intriguing. What's that one all about?
Okay, so in Voyager's Legacy, you're working with Dr. Alara Kepler, and your mission is to locate a lost space probe. And to do this, you have to use your knowledge of orbital mechanics and all the communication protocols involved with spacecraft.
So it's not just about finding a tiny speck in the vastness of space. It's about understanding how objects move in space, how we communicate with spacecraft over these huge distances, and even some aspects of planetary science.
Right, and there's this one detail in the mission that really struck me. Dr. Kepler mentions that there's about a 42-minute delay in transmitting signals to and from the probe.
Wow, 42 minutes. Why is there such a huge delay?
Well, it all comes down to the sheer distance involved. The probe is something like 750 million kilometers away, and even though radio signals travel the speed of light, it still takes a significant amount of time for those signals to go back and forth.
Okay, so that 42-minute delay isn't just some random fact that's thrown in there. It's a critical element of the mission, right?
Absolutely. That delay becomes a really important constraint. You can't just send a command and expect an immediate response. You have to plan ahead, anticipate potential problems, and really think about the timing of everything.
So you're really experiencing the challenges of space exploration firsthand. It's not just theoretical anymore.
Exactly. And it's these kinds of details that make the learning so much more powerful. You're not just memorizing facts, you're actually using them to solve a problem in a realistic scenario.
So we've journeyed to the outer reaches of space. Let's zoom in now to the microscopic world with the Viral Defense Protocol mission. What's the challenge in this one?
Okay, in this mission, you're teaming up with Dr. Amara Chen to fight a viral outbreak.
I can only imagine this mission is a crash course in cellular biology.
It really is. You're learning about the different structures within our cells, how viruses work, and all the ways our bodies try to defend against them.
Are there any specific details from this mission that you found particularly interesting?
Yeah, there's this one part where Dr. Chen explains how the virus hijacks the cell's internal transport network. It's called the microtubule network. You can kind of think of it as like a highway system inside the cell.
Okay, so the virus is using our own cell's infrastructure against us. That's pretty sneaky.
Yeah, it is. And what's even more fascinating is that the virus uses these little motor proteins called kinesin and dynein to move its components around on the microtubules.
So instead of just learning that viruses replicate inside cells, we're actually seeing the mechanisms they use to take over the cell step by step.
Right. And because you're learning about it in the context of trying to stop a viral outbreak, it makes it that much more engaging and memorable.
So we've explored the vastness of space and the intricacies of our cells. What other missions can people expect to experience in these dialogues?
Well, there's the industrial sabotage investigation, where you're working with Dr. Sofia Mendez to use your knowledge of chemistry to analyze evidence and figure out what happened.
Ooh, sounds like a little bit of CSI in VR.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Then you have earthquake safety inspection with Carlos Rodriguez, where you're diving into the world of structural engineering, assessing buildings after an earthquake and making sure they're safe.
And you mentioned there are even missions that take place in the medical field, right?
Yeah, there's the medical emergency response where you're working alongside Flight Nurse Garcia using your knowledge of anatomy and emergency medical protocols to respond to a trauma patient.
Wow. So these missions really do span a wide range of subjects and disciplines.
They really do. And there's one more I wanted to mention. It's called Lakeside Murder Mystery.
Okay, this one sounds intriguing. Give us the rundown.
So you're working with Captain Morgan to solve a murder mystery. It's all about applying the principles of forensic science, toxicology, and good old-fashioned detective work.
All right, so we've seen that these missions cover a ton of different subjects. But what's really going on here educationally? What makes these dialogues more than just cool stories with a bit of science sprinkled in?
Yeah, that's the key question, isn't it? It all comes down to how these dialogues are designed. They use a bunch of different approaches to really enhance learning. For example, in each mission, you're guided by these expert avatar guides, like the doctors and scientists we were talking about earlier.
So you have this constant source of knowledge and expertise right there with you, walking you through the process.
Right. And then there's this concept of decision-based learning. At various points in the mission, you're presented with multiple choice decisions that will directly impact how the story unfolds.
So it's not just about passively absorbing information. You're constantly being challenged to apply what you've learned and make choices that will affect the outcome.
And the feedback you get isn't just a simple right or wrong. They really go into why a certain choice was right or wrong. So you're actually learning from your mistakes and building a deeper understanding.
It sounds like it keeps you really engaged in the learning process. You're not just trying to get to the end of the story. You're actively participating in it and shaping it with your decisions.
Exactly. And then another important aspect is what they call environmental immersion. The VRR environment really draws you in.
You know, it makes sense. If you feel like you're really there on a spaceship, in a human cell, or at a crime scene, it's going to be a lot easier to connect with the material and remember it.
Definitely. And then the last design principle I wanted to mention is progressive complexity. Each mission unfolds through 5 different discovery points, gradually increasing in difficulty.
So they're carefully scaffolding the learning experience so you're not overwhelmed.
Right. You know, Dan Lajerskar, who's the chairman of EON Reality, really emphasizes the importance of this narrative-driven, problem-based approach. He argues that it dramatically improves knowledge retention and makes it much easier to actually apply what you've learned in the real world.
Which is ultimately what we all want, right? To be able to take what we learn and actually use it.
Exactly. And, you know, Mats W. Johansson, the president of EON Reality, pointed out something I thought was really interesting. He was saying that to create these dialogues, they brought together a whole team of experts, subject matter experts, educational psychologists, and narrative designers.
That's pretty impressive. So they're combining the best of different worlds to make sure the content is accurate, engaging, and effective.
And the use of AI assistance just adds another layer of sophistication. It allows the system to potentially personalize the learning experience for each individual.
So it's really a testament to the power of technology when it's used thoughtfully and intentionally.
Yeah, and it really aligns with EON Reality's bigger vision, which is to democratize knowledge and make it more accessible to everyone around the world.
So to bring it all back to our listeners, what's the main takeaway from our deep dive into these mission dialogues today?
I think the big takeaway is that this is a really exciting development in the world of education and training. These mission dialogues offer a really powerful way to learn complex things by putting you right in the middle of the action and making you an active participant in the learning process.
So it's about moving beyond passive learning and creating these immersive experiences where you're not just memorizing information, but you're actually using it to solve problems.
Yeah, and the fact that they've woven in all these real-world details into the narratives makes it so much more compelling and memorable.
Now, for anyone who's interested in learning more about these mission dialogues and maybe even trying them out for yourself, we understand that there's more information available online. You can also check out their podcast and the EON XR Spoken blog for more in-depth discussions on these and other topics.
And as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. As these immersive learning technologies continue to evolve, how do you think they'll change the way we learn and understand the world around us?
It's an exciting time to be exploring the future of learning, and these mission dialogues seem to be pointing the way toward a more engaging, effective, and frankly, just more fun way to learn.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. It's a real game changer.